if you've wanted to escape the rat race, if you have fantasized about experiencing other cultures, if you've decided to stop procrastinating your travel dreams and have some questions for a man who has been traveling for a decade, give us a call at 613-750-1211 or 1-888-750-1211. We are going to start with Eleanor, and then Matt is going to share some more of his wisdom with all of you. We do welcome your calls. Eleanor, yes. You have a travel question for Matt Hamilton.
Yes. Matt, I was wondering, how many women who are single do you meet in your travels, and are they trying to do the same thing that you're doing, or would you even recommend single women attempting to travel the way that you do?
Great question.
You know, that's a fantastic question, and I would fully recommend it. I've met countless women out traveling by themselves. I think one of the biggest misconceptions about traveling alone is that you are alone. You're continuously surrounded by people, whether it's fellow travelers, people working in the hostels, people from that country. You're never, ever really alone, and it's such a tight-knit community. Travelers tend to look out for one another, so women traveling alone, I fully recommend it, and I think you'll be amazed with the experience you have, so more power to you.
Eleanor, it sounds like you're contemplating a change here.
I have traveled alone by myself quite a bit, actually, but not in the same locations perhaps that Matt has traveled, and in the same style that Matt has traveled.
Okay.
So I was just wondering about that. Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And let's just talk about the style, because you're not calling it a holiday, you're calling it a
whole adventure.
Yeah.
You know, some of the destinations that I recommend are there places where your currency are going to go a long ways, which means they're developing, which means that you're going to be roughing it. Getting from A to B, you're not going to have the luxury that you might find here in Canada, but that is actually part of the adventure. Some of my best highlights are getting from one spot to the other. The bus might be not in the best shape, and it might be overcrowded, and the roads may be bumpy, but for the locals, a lot of them, this is a big event. They're in their Sunday best. They've packed picnics. They're singing on the bus. So although it might take 8 hours to cover a couple hundred kilometers, don't think about that. Look around at the other things around you. Look out the window at the scenery going by, and as I say, it's a whole adventure. You do get there, and when you look back at it, it will probably be a highlight. But
you do understand, you call it the velvet rut, and you said that you were almost lured into it, and you understand, for a whole lot of people, the security.
Oh, for sure. The hardest part about my travels was deciding to do it, because I had a good life here. I had my friends, my family, a good job that paid money, holidays. Giving that up was the tough thing, because it is so comfortable. But one of the beautiful things about Canada is we can come back to that. I was away for almost 6 years when I came home from my brother's wedding, and looking through the paper for a bar job just to kill the time, there was a job as a travel agent specializing in Africa. Well, within 24 hours, I was employed by them, back in suits and ties, business cards. I had caught up, but had the luxury of having these 6 magical years traveling. Now, the travel agent job wasn't ideal, and I ended up leaving and going back out on the road, but it showed me that coming back is easy to do. So giving things up shouldn't be a problem.
We want to ask Kathleen if that's her situation. Hi, Kathleen, your question for Matt.
Hi, Matt. I was wondering, you mentioned budget, and I'm curious. I traveled many years ago in '72 for 4 months in Europe on $10 a day, and it did work, but how did you figure your budget out?
Well, I guess it depends where you go. I made the mistake of starting my travels in Europe. And Europe is beautiful, but it's expensive. When I was in Southeast Asia, in Laos, I was living on $10 a day. And I had a beautiful little A-frame bungalow right on the Mekong River. I was eating 3 meals a day. Any extra expenses was taken care of. So yeah, there's still ways to make the dollar last. I think if you're going to be traveling Europe for the summer, $10 a day is just not feasible anymore, unless you're going to be eating out of dumpsters, which I don't really recommend. But places like Southern Africa, Southeast Asia, India, yeah, you can find a way to make $10 go actually a long, long ways.
What about transportation?
Well, transportation, take advantage of local transportation. Again, my $10 a day in Laos, that included my getting from A to B. Local transportation really is the great way to do it, great money saver. I won't necessarily call it a time saver, but yeah, it's a good way to do it.
So Eleanor was asking about safety, Kathleen's asking about the budget. I'm asking about your stomach. How did you handle you know, eating around the world and food and building up? Did you have any issues?
No, touch wood. Surprisingly well. I'm definitely a carnivore. I'd like my food to have had parents. So I, you know, even in these different parts of the world, ate well. And Southeast Asia, the food is delicious. And I guess a good tip, follow the locals. If the locals are going into a restaurant and eating there, you have a pretty good sense that the food is well prepared and is not going to make you sick. So yeah, 10 years of traveling, I never once got a dodgy belly.
The places that you have lived and will return time and time again. South Africa, of course.
South Africa's in my heart. I was warned before I went to South Africa that something happens to you, something gets inside that makes it extremely difficult to leave. And yet if you do leave, you'll have this incredible urge to go back. And it's so true. I mean, I went for 3 weeks and stayed for 2 years, left for a year, went back for another 2 years. Southeast Asia still has a lot of pull, and I've never touched South America or Central America. The thing about traveling, there isn't a time limit on it. There isn't, you know, when you hit 35, you got to stop. As far as I'm concerned, you can travel the rest of your life.
And we should say you've never seen a Canadian or an ocean from a Canadian perspective, and you're on your way to the East Coast in a couple of weeks. So.
I haven't explored Canada at all. Well, and my girlfriend from Switzerland's coming over in about a month, and the two of us are going to hit the East Coast and see a Canadian ocean.
Well, those watching from the East Coast will make you feel welcome. Now, you have an event. We are out of time, but your event this weekend.
Yeah, so I'm at Rideau Chapters between 1 and 5. They're actually hosting a local authors fair where there's about 8-9 of us representing the different writing genres who will be in. It's a meet and greet, casual. I'll be telling some travel stories, hopefully getting you excited about hitting the world.
Thanks a lot for sharing your stories with us, Matt. And of course, you live for $10 a day in Southeast Asia. One latte in Lucerne, but Lucerne, Switzerland is one of your favorite European cities.
Beautiful
Wanted to
city.
squeeze that in. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.